Are you thinking about moving to France? Well, my friend, you might regret it. And in this video, I'm going to tell you why. France looks almost suspiciously good from a distance. Paris cafes, Mediterranean beaches, alpine villages, castles, vineyards, fresh bread, excellent cheese, and dudes named Francois sitting outside at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday like employment is an unpleasant rumor he'd rather not be involved with. This is the dream of just about every American over 40. The easy life in France, eating a baguette. It's easy to imagine yourself moving there, learning French, buying vegetables from an outdoor market, and spending the afternoon writing a novel nobody really asked for. Suddenly, you move to France and the dream gets shattered, and most of the time it's because of bureaucracy and a handful of other reasons. So here are the 10 less obvious reasons you might instantly regret moving to France. Number 10, France works on a bizarre amount of paperwork. France is a modern country with high-speed trains, advanced medicine, nuclear power, and engineers who helped build the Concorde back in the day. Always wanted to fly on that thing and never got to. It breaks my heart. It's an amazing plane. Anyway, moving on. It also occasionally behaves like a fax machine is a recent and dangerous invention. Almost everything can require a dossier, which is French for a folder containing every document you've ever received since birth. You may need identification, bank statements, tax records, employment contracts, proof of insurance, proof of address, and another form confirming that your proof of address is emotionally prepared to serve as the proof of your address. Maybe even proof that you know the difference between sparkling wine and champagne. There is a difference. It's about geography. It's not about taste. Well, I mean, some of them have a decent taste, some of them have bad taste. But the difference is the region. My favorite document is the proof of domicile. This is what it looks like in French. I'm not even going to try and butcher that. This is a document that proves where you live. Unfortunately, getting one often requires already having services at the address you're trying to prove you live at. So you want to get electricity to a place, but you can't get the service without having proof you live there. And you can't get the proof without the services. It's an insane administrative circular logic performed with great confidence and little flexibility. You'll submit everything, wait 3 weeks, and receive a message saying that your application is incomplete because page 4 was scanned in the wrong orientation or some other bureaucratic nonsense. France didn't reject you. Your PDF simply lacked cultural integration and attitude. And everything in France needs a little attitude. Doesn't always have to be bad attitude, can be good attitude. And you'll learn that as this video progresses. You need the right attitude to live in France. Number 9, renting an apartment is basically applying for a security clearance. Now, this kind of piggybacks off the last one, getting a place to live. Finding a French apartment, especially in a popular city, isn't just about having enough money. No, it's much more than that. You need a rental dossier. This may include identification, tax documents, employment records, pay slips, proof of your current residence, and information from a guarantor who may also need to provide a small autobiography and evidence of financial purity. French landlords love stability, especially in the famous CDI, or permanent employee contract. More on that later. You could have substantial savings and a strong foreign income, but if you don't fit the familiar template, landlords may look at your application like you're offering to pay rent with carnival tickets and shiny beads. Then comes the guarantor. Plenty of landlords want another person who promises to pay if you don't. This person may need a solid French income and enough paperwork to qualify for a modest cabinet position in the French government. You know, because in France, anything worth doing is worth overdoing. The strangest part is that you could be rejected for an apartment you can easily afford because your financial life is formatted incorrectly. If you use the wrong font, they think you're a dreg. Shout out to Dregs, he's one of our subscribers. You have money, but France would simply prefer that you have French-flavored money accompanied by 3 pay slips and an uncle named Philippe who makes croissants. What this all boils down to is it's incredibly hard to get an apartment in France because they treat you like you're trying to con them right off the bat. You could be a clergyman with $2 million in the bank and have the honesty that George Washington had when he swore he cut down the cherry tree. You know, you're still not getting the apartment unless you got all the paperwork. Number 8, a permanent work contract can matter more than your actual talent. France has an employment status obsession that newcomers often underestimate. The golden ticket is the CDI. We talked about it earlier, the permanent employment contract. It doesn't merely give you a job. It tells banks, landlords, and other institutions that you're a stable adult who probably owns matching towels. Without one, life can become harder. Freelancers, entrepreneurs, temporary workers, foreign employees, and people with variable incomes may discover that France appreciates creativity right up until someone has to approve a lease or a loan. Then everyone suddenly wants predictability, monthly salary, and paperwork stamped by a person sitting beneath a fluorescent light. You could run a successful international business and still be treated as a less reliable person than someone who has worked in the same municipal office since Jacques Chirac had dark hair. France loves artists, writers, and independent thinkers in theory. In a financial application, it would prefer that you have a permanent government job. Yeah, they don't mess around. There's a lot of hoops you got to jump through in every country to live there and maybe become a citizen. That's way down the line. We're not even getting to that right now. But their country is just paperwork after paperwork and proof of this and proof of that and proof of everything. Now, I know there's some people in the comment section that are going to tie this back to our immigration problems here in the United States. We have the same rules, and they have people illegally going into their country as well. So your argument doesn't work. It just doesn't. Number 7, French customer service often begins with no. Customer service in France has its own rhythm. In America, employees are trained to smile, apologize, and promise to make it right, even when the customer clearly caused the problem by putting their laptop in a dishwasher and they don't understand why there wasn't a warning about this. In France, the opening response may simply be no. Not let me check, not perhaps, just a calm, professionally delivered no. This doesn't always mean the answer is actually no. It means you asked the wrong way, approached the wrong desk, failed to greet the employee properly, or appear before lunch when their spirit is elsewhere. In France, beginning any interaction without saying bonjour can make you seem rude. The secret is to stay polite, greet everyone, explain the problem carefully, and keep asking. Eventually, the hidden solution may emerge from beneath the desk like a bureaucratic truffle. It's almost like you're trying to solve a word puzzle when you're dealing with people in France, especially customer service people or people that work for the government. French customer service is not necessarily worse. It just refuses to pretend that your happiness is part of their quarterly bonus structure. I mean, in the United States, I've worked in customer service, I've worked in call centers, and one of the most important things is make sure they leave happy. They even give you a little survey at the end that says, how was the person? Were they friendly? And they ask all these things. Did they make you happy? Did you want to get a belly rub from them? They ask all that stuff and they want to know. And that poor dude that answered the phone that you yelled at, his livelihood really depends on you and the 20 people he may talk to in the next hour if you said, yeah, they did a good job. So don't take it out on the rep. They're just following the rules. Answer their survey. Say the person was wonderful. Then you get on X or Twitter, and then you roast the company there. Number 6, the French eat whenever the French decide to eat. One thing Americans learned quickly is that French businesses don't always care about your personal schedule. Restaurants may serve lunch during a specific window and then close. Dinner might not begin until later than you're used to. Smaller shops may close in the middle of the day. Some businesses close on Sunday or Monday because apparently capitalism also deserves a long weekend. You can't always wander into a restaurant at 3:37 and demand a full meal. The kitchen's closed. They'll simply tell you that. Nothing's being served. Go away. The chef is gone. Leave my doorway. Your hunger has been reviewed and denied by a guy with a sour look on his face. Americans are used to food being available whenever they manage to get their pie hole out of their vehicle. France expects you to organize your life around meals rather than treating lunch like an emergency fuel eaten over a keyboard. At first, this seems civilized. Then you miss lunch service by 8 minutes and find yourself eating crackers from a pharmacy while you're surrounded by people who have planned properly and are well fed. France will improve your relationship with food by making sure you understand that there are consequences for poor scheduling. Yeah, they take their food very seriously. They also take punctuality and scheduling very seriously. So keep that in mind, because here in the United States, I mean, you drive down any road and you're going to see 10 fast food places, and then you just pull into one of those and get food. They don't have that many fast food places there. Some places you come across don't have any. France will improve your relationship with food by making sure you understand that there are consequences for your poor scheduling. And you know, here in the United States, we're not used to that. We drive down any road, you're going to find fast food places or sit-down restaurants for that matter. I mean, I right now could leave my house and within 3 minutes I will pass a McDonald's, I'll pass a Dairy Queen, and a Subway. There's also a Mexican restaurant there, and I could walk there in 15 minutes. If I drive down the road a little bit further, I run into another frickin' Dairy Queen and then a Buffalo Wild Wings. There's some other restaurants in that one, like Einstein Bagel. It's incredible that I can get food just about any time of the day at a moment's notice. There's no planning involved for food here in the United States. But yeah, in France, it's a different situation. Don't get caught off guard, or you'll go to bed without your supper. Number 5, speaking French is not enough. You've got to speak the right French. Many newcomers arrive proudly carrying several months of language lessons. They know how to order coffee, ask for directions, and tell people there's a monkey under the table because language apps always are preparing you for highly specific primate emergencies. I was in Spanish class in high school, and they had us learn all kinds of different things, but one I was really kind of blown away by. It was in the book, "This food tastes like a shoe," in Spanish. I forget what it is now, but it was hysterical. I've yet to find the opportunity to use that gem while speaking to someone in Spanish. But you learn a little French, and then you end up talking to a real French person, and the French person pauses. They understood you, but your pronunciation damaged something ancient inside their soul. France takes its language seriously. That can be admirable, but it can also be a pain in the ass for beginners who are now terrified to open their mouths around French people, and you're living in the frickin' country. Some people will politely help you. Others will correct a vowel with the seriousness of a surgeon repairing an artery. Then there's the famous experience attempting French and receiving an answer in English. That's always a gem. You think you finally get to use your French or your Spanish, whatever your language is. You try it out on a local and they come back at you with English. You're like, why did I even go to that class? Why do I have that app? You know, I've been there before. You practice that sentence all morning, and then the waiter euthanizes it in 3 seconds with a condescending smile. Frickin' French people. The stereotype that every French person is rude is unfair. Most aren't, but France does have a national allergy to unnecessary enthusiasm. And Americans arrive sounding like a game show host asking for the restroom. Now, I'm not saying don't learn the language. Learning a language helps enormously in any country you want to move to, not just France. Well, maybe a little more in France because they're kind of anal. Just be prepared to spend several years discovering that every object has a gender and yours is apparently wrong. Yeah, I've been corrected by French people too, and I know very little French. So, I mean, I'm a perfect target for their sneer, and I've earned it, but they didn't need to do that. You know, it's not like I've had French people or Spanish people try and speak to me and I'm like, hey, you're saying it wrong. And if you go to Mississippi, you're saying it extra wrong. We got our own little issues here in the United States. People hassle me all the time because I talk like a Southern California person. And we shorten a lot of words and we have strange pronunciations. And I don't try and change it. So that's that. Number 4, work strikes are not a disruption. They're part of the national calendar. In some countries, a strike is a major unexpected event. In France, it can feel like a seasonal tradition. Rail workers, teachers, air traffic controllers, sanitation workers, refinery employees, and public sector staff that have the ability to remind the country that labor rights were not obtained through a polite suggestion box. They're a right. They don't mess around in France when it comes to getting jerked around by the man. They'll have a riot and a strike all in the same afternoon. You may wake up and discover your train has been canceled, your child's school is closed, your garbage has piled up so high there's a bunch of kids doing extreme sports on it, or fuel deliveries have become a national suspense series that often ends in a cliffhanger. The French don't merely complain about government policy. They march through the city carrying signs, setting off flares, and occasionally placing farm equipment somewhere highly inconvenient for everyone. You know, you gotta admire the commitment to being a pain in the ass to get your way. I mean, I love that. They're willing to risk their jobs and, a couple weeks' pay to make sure they don't get jerked around by the man. In America, people get angry and write an online review. In France, they shut down the highway with 400 tractors and a wheel of cheese the size of a truck tire. Now, they don't usually spring strikes on the public. They're often announced in advance, and services usually publish an adjusted schedule. But as a resident, you learn to check whether the country's operating normally before making any serious plans. The French like to call this a collective action. You might have different words for your missed airport connection. Maybe something stronger that starts with an F. Number 3, living in an old French building is romantic until you own one. That century-old apartment with wooden beams, stone walls, and crooked windows looks incredible online. Then you move in and discover that the building was constructed before people expected electricity, insulation, elevators, or leveled floors. Old French properties can be beautiful, but they can also contain ancient plumbing, mysterious wiring, small rooms, narrow staircases, and walls apparently made from compressed history and dust. And if you bought a fixer-upper and you want to do some renovations, well, renovating can introduce you to permits, energy efficiency rules, local planning restrictions, historic preservation requirements, and tradespeople who promise to arrive somewhere between April and the collapse of the Fifth Republic. Then there's the shared ownership system, which is very common in apartment buildings in France, much like our condo associations or HOAs. Owners collectively deal with building repairs, maintenance, and charges through meetings where people could spend 45 minutes debating the exact emotional impact of replacing a hallway light with soft white instead of incandescent bulbs. You may own your apartment, and that's nice, and I'm glad you made it through all the paperwork, but you don't own the roof, the stairwell, the facade, or the opinions of the retired gentleman on the third floor who has opposed every improvement since 1996. He still wants to bring back cassette tapes. That charming French property can be a dream. It can also be a medieval money pit with shutters. Number 2, moving to France doesn't automatically give you French friends. France attracts people who imagine instantly developing a lively social circle filled with long dinners, philosophical conversations, and attractive friends who somehow know which wine goes with disappointment. Real life can be slower. French friendships often develop through school, family, work, and long-established social circles. That was like a tongue twister. Oh my God. People may be polite and pleasant without immediately inviting you into their private lives. It's almost like living in Seattle. They got this thing called the Seattle Freeze. The French people are much worse. Americans sometimes interpret this as coldness. The French may interpret American instant friendliness as suspicious enthusiasm from someone who will disappear by next Thursday. Neither side is necessarily wrong. They simply have a different friendship speed in France. Now, I'm not saying people aren't going to be nice to you. They're not going to treat you poorly. They're just not going to let you into their inner circle. In the United States, someone can call you their best friend in 20 minutes after meeting you at a barbecue. In France, you may know someone for 3 years before being invited to their home, and another 5 before they admit they actually enjoy your company. Once French friendships form, they can be deep and loyal, but getting there takes language, patience, and repeated appearances. You just can't move into a village, purchase a striped shirt, and expect locals to adopt you because you complimented the bakery. They've seen this before. You got to work at getting some friends there, and it's going to take some time. Make sure you bring a girlfriend, a wife, a husband, something like that, so you have someone to talk to occasionally late at night over wine and a baguette. All right, would you move to France? Let me know in the comment section. I'd love to hear if that's a place you would want to move to. Also, let me know in the comment section, which country should we look at next? All right, on to number 1. And number 1, you may not have the final say over your inheritance. Here's one French surprise many foreigners don't discover until they start estate planning. You may not be free to leave everything to whomever you choose. French inheritance laws protect certain heirs, like children, by reserving part of the estate for them. The portion you can distribute freely depends on how many protected heirs you have and other legal details. So if that kid you have that you disowned because they went off the deep end with QAnon, he might get part of your estate anyway. That means the simple American idea of it's my property and I will decide everything may collide with French law, wearing a robe and carrying a calculator. Families with children from previous relationships, unmarried partners, property in multiple countries, or complicated estates can quickly enter a legal maze involving French succession rules, tax residence, international regulations, and a notary who begins every sentence with, "It depends." And yes, inheritance tax and family relations can add even more excitement to the whole thing. You know, nothing strengthens that family bond like discovering that French law, a foreign will, 3 adult children, and a vacation house in Nice all have different opinions about who owns the kitchen. This isn't something to figure out using an online form over a glass of wine. Anyone moving substantial assets or buying property in France needs qualified cross-border legal advice. Keep that in mind. That one's a rough one. France can offer beautiful homes, healthcare, culture, food, and a slower pace of life. But it also brings paperwork, rigid systems, and rules you may not know exist until they're standing between you and your apartment, bank account, or estate. So before moving to France, don't just ask whether you love Paris, cheese, and medieval villages. Ask whether you could survive in a country where lunch has office hours, renting requires a documentary archive, and the word no may simply be the first stage of a negotiation. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, you probably enjoyed this one right here. Everybody have a great day. Be nice to each other.